Everyone can see the PowerPoint? All right. All right, guys, we are going to get started. We have a lot of people, a lot of families, parents and families joining our call tonight. We are super excited to be able to talk to you guys and inform you guys of the work-based learning senior requirement for your rising senior. I know it's really exciting. Having a junior about to become a senior, they worked really, really hard, and we want to be able to support them. So welcome to the Parent Information Night for the Appoquinimink School District. My name is Brian Johnson. I am the Work-Based Learning Specialist for District Office, and I'm going to introduce the team shortly. We have over 300 parents that actually registered for this call. So thank you for taking your time. We know your schedules are busy, and we truly appreciate your commitment. With that being said, tonight's session is all about work-based learning. It's a senior requirement here at the Appoquinimink School District. Our goal for this evening is to familiarize you all with this requirement, as we recognize that you are a key part of your students' success. You're their village of support. You're part of that village. We believe that families and support systems are informed, then students actually have better outcomes. Throughout the presentation, you will hear from members of the work-based learning team, which I'll introduce you to shortly, who are here to guide and support your student. But a few housekeeping items before we actually get started. At any time during the presentation, you can submit a question in the chat. We will answer those questions either via chat or at the end verbally so everyone can hear it. We understand it's a lot of information, and we encourage you guys to ask as many questions as you can, and we will monitor the chat and answer questions. Oops, sorry. 1 second. All right, so before I introduce our team, I want to emphasize the importance of your student's support system. A student support system includes everyone that loves and care about them. So this includes you, the family, the parents, your guardians, the trusted friends, workplace associates, neighbors, even our local businesses and community members. And we also know that we have staff members and teachers, and of course, our work-based learning specialists that's on the call. They are at the heart of your student support system and here to guide and support your student throughout their high school experience for their senior year. So I want to introduce each specialist. At Appoquinimink High School, we have Miss Whitney Jacobs, who will be supporting the Apple students. At Middletown High School, we have Miss Antoinette Latch. And at Odessa High School, we have Miss Ann Terranova. You will get an opportunity to hear from each one of them tonight as they walk you through different sections of the work-based learning requirement. And just to let you know, you also may hear WBL, which is just a short acronym for work-based learning. Our entire team is dedicated to preparing you for students, preparing your student for the transition into the workplace. So to get into our agenda, so you know exactly what we're going to go over, here are a few key topics. First, we're going to talk about the work-based learning, the immersion experience. We'll also go into what our gold standard experience is. We have a goal for all of our students, and this will be outlined in the gold experience. We'll provide you some tips for success. We'll talk about our efforts to get your student workforce ready. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the Senior Capstone Project, and then we'll be sure to answer any questions. Again, feel free to drop any questions in the chat at any time, and we'll be sure to address it. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of work-based learning, I want to make sure that everyone understands why we even do this at the Appoquinimink School District. Our mission is to prepare all of our students for life beyond high school. So all of our efforts is summed into this profile of a graduate that you see on the screen. And it's defined in the different attributes that we want to develop with your student before they graduate. And there's 6 different components. So as you can see, we want our students to be academically ready. We also want them to be life ready, future focused, workplace ready, civic minded, and also financially savvy. So the work-based learning and immersion experience in our whole efforts actually falls under the workplace ready component. Our goal is to provide real-world experiences that prepare students for life after high school and through their professional development and career immersion experiences. So this is how we do it. This illustration that you see right now is the workforce continuum. So sorry. So to give you a better understanding of how the work-based learning fits into your student's journey, we want to highlight our work-based learning continuum. This document outlines how we introduce the career awareness, exploration, immersion, and that's going from your student's middle school experience through their graduation experience. Tonight, you'll hear about the Workforce Readiness Fair, which is our annual event designed to equip students with the skills needed for their success in careers. And then you'll also hear about their immersion experience, which is a senior graduation requirement for all of our students to participate in. These experiences will help your students gain confidence, professional skills, and career clarity before they actually leave high school. And now I'm actually going to turn it over to Miss Ann Terranova to talk about work-based learning.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, I'm Ann Terranova. I am at Odessa High School to support all of those juniors and seniors. And so I'm going to cover the work-based learning immersion portion this evening. So what is work-based learning? This is an educational strategy, but the goal is to provide your students with real-life work experience. This is where they can take everything they've learned in the classroom, all of the skills that they have, and apply it to the real world. We know many of your students maybe already have jobs, but this is where they're going to go and immerse themselves and do 50 hours related to their pathway of study. So they're going to, again, take those skills, work on those processes, bridge that gap. And our goal is really to prepare them for whatever comes next, whether it's the workforce, military, or college. And this is to be, as that last bullet shows you, a student-led process. Part of being workforce ready is finding the job and going through that process. And you'll hear a little more about that later. But we want them to be successful as they move on. Next slide, please. So again, why do we do it? Students need to be prepared when they go out, and we want to help them with that. Many of our industry partners that work, they see some of the challenges and the skills that our students need to work on. And I'm sure you've read a lot about this, and we have some information for you here from Forbes and Resume Builders. This focus right here is Gen Z, which is where your students fall as far as where they are in life. And one of the things you will see up there is some of the reasons that managers find difficult. They are lacking some technology skills, which can be surprising, maybe given how much you see your student on technology, but lack of effort, productivity, and being easily distracted. So all of this work-based learning immersion experience is also going to help them with that. It's going to help them with that time management, communication. We really, really stress that with the students as well. So we want them to practice. This is that kind of safe space for them to practice this. I was recently talking with two of the digital communication seniors at Odessa High School, and we were talking about productivity and the project they're working on. I said, now is the time. It's not just an assignment. They're used to getting an assignment that I have to finish for class. Now, this is something where you've done those assignments and you're taking those skills and you're producing something, or you're at the work day and you're helping, or you're shadowing and you're communicating, you're working on those skills. So it's kind of changing that mindset for them and getting them to think beyond high school, and now they're building their career and they're building those connections and their network. Next slide, please. So we wanted to share with you what some of our graduates and our current seniors have said about work-based learning and why it's so valuable. Because sometimes the thought is, oh, this is just something I have to do. This is a requirement. But we're really trying to get the students to understand the value of this experience. So you can see some comments there where they realize it taught them networking, project management. They're getting work experience. They're learning how to problem solve in the workplace. So they're really finding it valuable. And what's interesting, if you look at that, some of those towards the bottom, sometimes it solidifies that, oh, this is my pathway. This is absolutely the direction where I want to go. So that helped me solidify it. But at the bottom, you see a student that said, well, my experience with work-based learning helped me better understand where I want to go. Although I loved my experience, it helped me decide I actually want to pursue something different. And we've heard this time and time again. And I always say to the students, well, that's fine because you've spent no money coming to this decision and this is helping you. For when you go to college, you're not wasting time and money at that point. I was talking with one of our allied health seniors after she presented her capstone, and she was at Westtown Dental and she loved it. And she said, the people were great. I enjoyed it. I thought I wanted dentistry. She was toying with a couple things. And what that experience showed her is that dentistry isn't what she wants. It was a good experience, but she's not going to move forward with it. So again, a lot of value in that as well. Next slide, please. So what does work-based learning look like? Where are some of the things? And you're going to hear a lot more about this. Ms. Jacobs will cover this, but there are a couple categories. So the first one you see there is paid employment or an internship. So some of our students, for example, our students in our culinary pathway can go out and find a paid position. And that's one option. Secondly, maybe it's an unpaid internship or a job shadow. I was just mentioning that allied health senior who is at Westtown Dental. You're shadowing, you're not getting paid, but they are observing and shadowing and getting a chance to ask lots of questions and observe and be in the workplace. The practicum category, that falls into, you see student teaching mentioned. Our education and leadership students go into another classroom in our district and they're observing the teachers and helping with lessons. The last category is service learning and volunteering. So there's many, many places our students can go and it's more of a volunteering situation. So that can count as well. And again, you're going to hear much more detail about this. Again, this is all to help them practice their skills and move forward so that they can see some of those, what they need to work on, know their strengths, know what they need to work on for the future. So we set them up for success. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Jacobs.
Good evening, everyone. I am Whitney Jacobs. I'm the work-based learning specialist at Appoquinimink High School. And tonight I'm going to be starting off by talking to you about what we expect as the gold standard immersion experience for our students in the district when it comes to work-based learning. I am going to be providing a lot of details and specifics for you this evening, but I do want you to know that this is being recorded and you all will be receiving a link after tonight's session with this information and also some additional resources if you need to go back and revisit anything. So key requirements of the gold standard experience include a placement in which any of those methods that Ms. Terranova just mentioned provides employment, internship, job shadowing, or volunteering that does align with the student's career pathway. It also will drive their senior capstone project, which we will touch on a little bit later. Students will need to be supervised by an industry professional, and the immersion experience should take place in a real-world work environment and professional setting. The experience also must be able to offer at least 50 hours. You'll notice here on the slide that for our students in the construction pathway, they are required to complete 120 hours. And then for the students in the culinary pathway, they also have the option to complete 120 hours to be exempt from their level 4 culinary course. The student also should secure an experience or placement that aligns with their post-secondary goals or interests as well. So for example, if your student is in the health science pathway and they desire or have a post-secondary goal of becoming a physical therapist, we would want to help them first seek out an immersion experience that either shadows a physical therapist or a PT assistant, is a facility, or they can job shadow or volunteer at a facility that provides physical therapy or maybe even rehabilitation services or even an athletic trainer. So we want to see the area of interest for them, the reason maybe that they've gone into that career pathway as an option for them for their experience. So as a reminder, we are going to send out this webinar, but this slide here does contain some ideas of where your child could possibly focus their efforts and start looking to secure an immersion experience. So you can see here that it's broken down by pathway in bold, and then underneath each one of those pathways gives you a little bit more detail as to what your child could be doing or where they could be looking for an immersion experience. Again, one of the criteria for gold standard experience is that it aligns with the student's interests. So they definitely need to take that into consideration. If students do have questions about the placement aligning appropriately with their pathway, we do strongly encourage that they meet with their work-based learning specialist, either myself, Ms. Terranova, or Ms. Latch, to check in first to make sure that it meets the requirement. So our goal through this process is to make your child as independent as possible for when they graduate from high school and that they are career and college ready. So here are some ideas of how your student can handle this process best. We do know that there's a level of uncomfortability for some students leading this process, and that's why it's called work-based learning. In order for students to be prepared for their futures, we do need them to take ownership of their education and coursework. So right now, your student or child is probably in their comfort zone, where they feel safe, everything's familiar, and it's real easy to stay there. But growth and learning don't happen in the comfort zone. So the students are going to have to step outside of that. That brings us into the fear zone. This is where students are going to face some uncertainty or they're going to be scared. And it's normal for them to feel a little anxious when facing new challenges, but it is an important step in their development. It's where students will face their fears, whether it's about interviewing for a job or taking on a new skill or making a phone call to someone they have never met before. The goal through this student-led process is really for them to learn and grow. They start gaining new skills and experiences that will benefit from them in the long run. And this is really where the transformation happens, when we push past our fears and we embrace new opportunities. When anyone here in this session tonight and anyone on the work-based learning team talks to parents or colleagues or industry partners when explaining this process and graduation requirement, usually the response that we get is, man, I really wish I had this in high school. So we really want to take this as a time to reflect on what a valuable opportunity this is for your child that they have prior to graduating and moving on to their post-secondary goals. So one of the best ways to step out of that comfort zone is to be prepared. We know that when your child is ready for the next steps in their career journey, they need to have the basics in place. That's an essential part of this process. So that does include making sure they have their resume up to date and that they have appropriate interview attire prepared and ready to go. Sometimes industry partners will reach out to us and we'll be looking to work with students in a matter of days. So sometimes things can move pretty quickly if an emergent experience comes up that we'd like to offer to students. So it's very important that they're ready, they're prepared, and that they stay on top of communication like their Schoology messages and emails. So as students begin the immersion experience and work towards earning that WBL graduation credit, it's also important to remember the role accountability and initiative play for your students' success. Being accountable, and we are going to ask them to be accountable, means taking ownership of their work, meeting deadlines, and staying on top of responsibilities, just like in the workplace, even when no one is watching or sending reminders. Communication is also going to be an essential part of this process. Your child is going to be responsible for keeping the work-based learning specialist informed about their progress, or if they need to check in with an employer. Regular and clear communication is a must. It's going to build trust and ensure that everyone is on the same page. Again, this means that students need to be consistently checking Schoology messages and updates, the opportunities board, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes, and their personal email daily. This is the way that business partners and industry partners communicate, and we want to make sure that students are aware of that. Time management is another critical skill that students will need to practice. They're going to have to balance schoolwork, the immersion experience, and other personal commitments. And we know that that can be challenging, but we also know it's doable, and we need for them to prioritize and plan accordingly. So avoiding procrastination and staying organized are definitely going to be habits that serve your students well. Believe it or not, senior year is going to be the busiest year. Students will be balancing requirements for school and sports, and they'll want to attend dances and field trips. Maybe they'll be working part-time. So our strong recommendation, we really, really encourage your student to get started on their work-based learning and maybe even complete it over the summer prior to the beginning of their senior year. In fact, when we met with the junior class this year, 86% of them shared that they want to start during the summer. So we just have to make sure that they're prepared and ready for success. Finally, responsibility means being reliable and showing up on time, being someone that people can count on, and respecting commitments. This means we expect students to do so. We need them to follow through with tasks and directions in a timely manner, just as an employer would ask, and put forth their best effort through this process. We will support the students by all means necessary, but students also need to take ownership in the process. So where do students find these immersion opportunities? There are a lot of great resources available to your children. One great place to start is Schoology. That's a platform where job listings and career opportunities will be posted. So students should be checking, like we said earlier, checking those updates regularly and their messages as well. Another great event to keep on your radar is the Employment Expo on April 9th at Odessa High School. It will be held at 6 p.m. and is a prime opportunity for your student to meet with local employers and network with some professionals in their students' fields of interest. Also, we don't want you to underestimate the power of networking. So whether it's through school events or reaching out to professionals in the community, networking is one of the best ways to uncover job opportunities. Please don't forget about family and friends. While family members are not permitted to mentor and supervise their own student through the process, they can still be a valuable resource in connecting students with colleagues, potential employers, or mentors that can also support your child. We do have to keep in mind that there are almost 1,000 juniors in the district that will be attempting to secure experiences. This means that some of these opportunities will be competitive, and they may even require an application or an interview process. And students may or may not be selected based on that criteria. Students should be prepared for this and put their best foot forward at all times. We know how important a first impression is. So now let's talk about what happens if things don't go as planned. So while the goal is for everyone to succeed, it's really important to know that there is a termination and redemption process in place. In some cases, it may be necessary for a student to separate from their immersion experience if things aren't working out. It could be due to a variety of different factors, such as performance issues or just a mismatch between the student's goals and the work environment. We want you to know that depending on the number of hours that the student has already completed, they may be allowed to continue accumulating hours, or they may be forced to start over. If a student has less than 25 hours completed in their work-based learning immersion experience and they are terminated, they will be required to start over. They will need to secure a new experience on their own and then complete all 50 hours. This does put your child in jeopardy of not meeting their graduation requirements. But because this is a learning process, we want your child to continue to grow and there is always a chance for redemption. So if termination does occur, the student will be offered an opportunity to meet with their work-based learning specialist to receive some mentoring and be provided guidance. We definitely want to help them refocus and get back on track and support them to be successful in their next immersion. Finally, let's look at some resources available to both students and parents. One of the most important resources is going to be Schoology. Not only is there a class of 2026 course where work-based learning information will be housed, but once your student is a senior, they will also be added to a class called Work-Based Learning Hub. So they'll be getting information posted on Schoology in both of those areas. They'll also have access to an opportunities board link that will be posted again on their Schoology accounts. It consists of a PowerPoint presentation that we update very frequently as a team with different options from business partners where the district is connected. So this is considered almost like our district's internal job postings board, similar to an Indeed.com or other websites that list job openings. The work-based learning specialists at each high school also are a great resource. They can answer questions, guide students through the process, and support them. We do expect that students reach out to us when they need help, but keep in mind that since we want this process to be student-led, the work-based learning specialist is going to ask what kind of efforts the student has made first to secure an experience or where they need help. The expectation would be from the work-based learning specialist that the students have documentation on employers that they've contacted, dates and times, maybe even the person that they've spoken to at a place of employment, so that we can follow up accordingly and help support them. But we do need to see that your student has taken initiative and accountability first. We also will be holding office hours and working periodically through the summer. So we do strongly encourage that if your student is seeking help and support, they can always make an appointment to meet with us via Zoom if needed over summer. Additionally, the Pathway Teacher can assist as well in connecting students with opportunities and providing guidance and even mentorship. They are also here as a part of that village to help support students and make sure they're getting the most out of WBL. So now let's talk about how students can secure an immersion experience and earn the work-based learning graduation credit. So it starts with securing the immersion and documenting. This is going to be an important aspect that will help prepare students for life after graduation. And the WBL credit, we do want to make sure students know it's not just about earning a grade. It's about learning practical skills that will set students apart in the future. We want them to know that it's an opportunity to grow and expand their professional network as well. So to earn that graduation credit, students can begin earning their hours as early as June 13th, 2025. So they can start work-based learning the day after the last day of school. That's when we consider students rising seniors to actually become seniors. The immersion experience also needs to be approved by the work-based learning specialist. This ensures that the work experience and that immersion is aligned with their career goals and their requirements. We want to make sure that students check in with one of us at their respective high school before moving forward. They also will need a fully signed training agreement. This is going to be completed in AET. It's one of the students' apps on their ClassLink account on their Chromebooks, and they will need a fully signed training agreement completed and signed prior to starting to log their hours. The reason for this is that we need things officially set up, tracked correctly, and we also need to keep students safe. So that training agreement is a formal electronic document that includes information about what's going to happen during the experience or placement and does require signatures from the student, you as the parent, us as the work-based learning specialist, and then the industry partner, supervisor, or mentor, whoever's going to be working directly with the student. This agreement outlines the role and expectations of all of those parties, making sure that everyone understands exactly what is expected. This spring, Specifics on how to complete that training agreement will be provided to all juniors. It will occur during Compass on a Wednesday. And then additionally, a copy of the directions on how to fill out a training agreement on AET and some screenshots with examples will also be posted on where? You guessed it, Schoology. So once students have gotten their training agreement signed, they've done their hours, they've logged them, tracked them all in AET, they will notify their work-based learning specialist that they've completed their immersion experience and documented everything properly. And then the last step will be a final evaluation. So the work-based learning specialist will send an evaluation directly to the employer or supervisor. And the goal with this evaluation is to gain information and verify the number of hours that the student has worked, and also for them to rate their professionalism and performance through that experience. The evaluation is key because it must be received by the work-based learning specialist as a component to the credit for work-based learning that gets recorded on the transcript for graduation. Remember, this isn't just about completing hours. It is about showing that you can demonstrate professionalism and apply your skills effectively in a real-world setting. This is a wonderful opportunity that students have to learn more about their future career goals and gain transferable skills, no matter if they're going to college or taking another path.
Well, you have just heard a lot of valuable information about work-based learning from my colleagues and what an experience can look like and tips for success for your student. My name is Toni Latch. I'm the work-based learning specialist at Middletown High School, and I'm going to share some more information with you about what it means to be workforce ready, as well as how we're going to support your student and really make sure that they're prepared to enter this experience. So whether your student is entering post-secondary education, transitioning directly into the workforce, we know that being workforce ready is going to set them up for success. So you heard from Ms. Terranova some statistics about what employers are saying about Gen Zers. Some of you may have been a little bit surprised by that, some maybe not, but we know that employers are saying that students lack communication skills, productivity is an issue, and on occasion, they're being terminated from their employment. So we really want to make sure they're prepared. So I'm going to cover a lot of information with you about the workforce readiness fair. But we also know that some of your students are doing great and maybe they already have part-time jobs. But for some of your students, this might be the first time that they've actually been placed in a professional work environment. So just from a personal perspective and the work-based learning team, we've noticed a lot over the years that students really lack confidence and they're just nervous. And I think that nervousness kind of contributes to their communication problems with employers, or maybe they just don't know what the appropriate means are. They're not sure what to say when drafting a professional email or making a phone call to ask about an experience. And they're really just unaware of basic workplace etiquette. So in order to prepare your students for a successful work-based learning experience or potential employment opportunities, we've organized the upcoming Workforce Readiness Fair on Wednesday, March 12th. This event is a requirement or a prerequisite to them participating in their senior year work-based learning immersion experience. Go ahead and change the slide for me, please. So I want to take this opportunity to share just some logistics with you about the day's events for the Workforce Readiness Fair, as well as some specifics about the sessions that your students are going to be participating in. By now, you should have already received and maybe even completed the Google Form permission slip for the event. Permission forms went out in various methods through email, through School Messenger. You might have received a text through School Messenger. They were also links to complete the form were posted in the parent newsletter. So In addition to having that permission form on file, your student must have an emergency card on file in the nurse's office. You probably would have already been contacted by myself or someone else in the building if your student did not have an emergency card. So please just make sure that you're checking your emails routinely. We're putting a big push this last few days to make sure we get everyone's permission forms and emergency cards completed. So the event this year is going to take place at the Delaware Technical and Community College Dover campus. Students are going to depart from their respective schools about 9:30 in the morning, so it is very important that day that your student gets to school on time. They're going to be grouped within their campus class, which is also typically grouped by pathway. They're going to depart from the school, like I said, around 9:30 and arrive hopefully over at the Del Tech campus by about 10 o'clock. Lunch is also going to be provided during the event, and then your students will return after all their sessions by about 1 p.m. We do recommend that your student dresses to impress, as we're going to have close to over 100 business partners at the event that are really there prepared to engage with your students, help guide them, give them valuable information and workforce tips. Some of those business partners include Christiana Care, the state of Delaware, High Five Hospitality, DuPont, Department of Transportation, and JP Morgan Chase, to name a few. If your student has a resume, which they should have already been working on throughout their campus class, we highly recommend that they bring a copy with them. They're going to be provided a bag and a folder and something that they could carry that in. So we highly recommend they bring that. In the past, we have had students through networking opportunities with industry partners have actually earned a placement on the spot with an industry professional for their work-based learning experience. So throughout the day, students are going to rotate through a series of 3 40-minute interactive sessions. One of those sessions is a networking session. Students in this session are going to hear from the president of Delaware Technical Community College. They will also eat lunch during this session, and then they're going to participate in a little networking bingo. So we wanted to make this as interactive as possible. Students are going to receive a bingo card with various tasks to complete, some of which are to learn about a particular industry, hear about common workplace challenges, share some career goals, practice cold calling, and even just basic practicing an introduction and a good handshake. And they might even learn how to tie a tie that day. So we have a little bit for everyone. So we feel that this networking session is just a great opportunity for students to practice communication, get a little bit out of their comfort zone, work through some nerves, and make some connections with these industry professionals. So we also have an interviewing session that students are going to participate in, and they're going to learn about some common interviewing tips that can really make them stand out in a crowd. They'll also learn how to dress properly for an interview. Within this session, students are going to spend about 20 minutes practicing role playing with common interview questions, as well as have some scenario-based examples. Then for the remaining 20 minutes, the students are actually going to be participating in a mock group interview. So to give them some real world experience and some feedback from those industry professionals. Hopefully the goal of this session is to really make sure that the students understand what to expect at an interview, help to build their confidence, and reduce nervousness going forward when they're in a situation where they're applying and interviewing for a work-based learning experience. So we think it's a great idea for these students to practice these skills in a safe space and get some real feedback. So the final session that students are going to participate in is workforce tips. Students with the directions of industry professionals are going to participate in an escape room like atmosphere. They're going to run through a series of scenarios, and they'll get to collaborate together and solve some problems and puzzles to earn clues to escape. Once they escape, they'll be deemed workforce ready. But some of the examples in this session are to find errors that might be in a resume, sequencing the appropriate events in a meeting, and solving a technology glitch. So those are some examples of what they're going to do in the workforce tips room. And really, again, a lot of this is building their confidence, learning how to collaborate and communicate with each other, all while practicing their workforce skills. So as you can see, this day is really designed to overall just to prepare your students for success. Additionally, each student will receive a copy of the district's workforce readiness curriculum booklet. This is a great resource for your students and yourselves, as it's going to give them examples of resumes. It's going to talk about workforce etiquette in the booklet, and give them some basic information about networking. They can always refer back to this booklet. And hopefully, you know, between the booklet and all the events that they're going to participate in at the Workforce Readiness Fair, you see that this event and their work-based learning experience is extremely a valuable experience for them. So in closing, I know you've heard a lot of information tonight about work-based learning, but I just want to summarize a couple key points prior to opening up for questions. One, yes, as Ms. Jacobs had mentioned and Ms. Terranova, work-based learning is a graduation requirement. We do recommend your students complete these hours over the summer. You'll hear that a lot. We talk to students about that. We're going to be going around to their campus classes, sharing information. They're going to have some panel discussions with some seniors that already participated in work-based learning. So again, summer is the optimal time. Schedules are a lot less restrictive. And again, just to kind of highlight, we do want to make sure you understand this is a student-led process and should be driven by student interest. Your student should initiate contact with at least 3 industry professionals or businesses to inquire about opportunities for work-based learning. Not just because, you know, we're not there to help them or support them. Obviously, we're there to help them and support them, but this gives them practice making those phone calls to employers, filling out applications, writing professional emails. And then we do ask them to provide some evidence of who they've contacted and when they spoke with them, because this is a great segue or opportunity for us to then do a follow-up phone call, explain what work-based learning is, and, you know, hopefully secure that partnership for them. Once students secure their work-based learning experience, again, it's extremely important that they complete the training agreement and have all necessary signatures. You know, obviously we want them to, you know, be accountable, to learn how to manage their time and manage documents and paperwork, but also we want to make sure that they've connected with us and that this is actually an approved experience that they're participating in. The worst thing that we want to happen is we don't want a student to go participate in an experience without getting prior approval, and then maybe it wasn't directly aligned to their pathway. So again, that's really an important component with that. We also tonight talked a lot about resources. So just to summarize, there are lots of resources, one of which is the work-based learning hub that will be provided to them in Schoology. They can find access to the work-based learning handbook, which really details specifics about work-based learning, the how-to guide or how to complete their training agreement. There's also links to the opportunities board. In addition, as an additional resource, we will post our office hours. Each work-based learning specialist will hold office hours typically throughout the school year. They're held every Wednesday during all 3 lunches and other times by appointment. But a lot of students don't know that they should still be checking Schoology throughout the summer, because we do host Zoom office hours throughout the summer to provide support for students. So where else can your student get some much needed resources? Each of us has our own virtual office that can be found on the APO CCR website. Within our virtual offices, typically we post when our office hours are. That's where the Zoom link will be also located. There are links to working papers, as well as information about networking, interviewing, and workforce tips. Additionally, one final thing, I know Ms. Terranova and Ms. Jacobs mentioned it, is the opportunities board, which there will also be a link in our virtual office to the opportunities board that is also housed in our Schoology platform as well. So there are lots of opportunities for students. There are lots of resources out there. We encourage you to remind your students to check Schoology, check their emails. I will say, as a parent of a freshman in college, that is critical. Once your student leaves high school, if they're going to post-secondary education, you as the parent no longer get the emails. The college will tell you only emails go to students, so it's your students' responsibility to check them. So I always say this is a great time for them to practice, learn to get in a routine habit of checking things. But again, you can see through all the information that we've provided you, we are here to support your students and make this a great experience and opportunity for them and make them successful moving forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Latch. I know there was quite a few questions about the capstone, so I am going to address that before we end the call. After students complete and verify their work-based learning hours, they will be required to complete a capstone project. This project serves as a reflection of their experience. What did they learn? What skills did they develop? And then also an opportunity to solve a problem that they were able to witness during their experience. So, for example, let's say a student that is working at a healthcare facility and they notice that it's understaffed. Your student will engage in a research project addressing that problem and working to resolve it. This will be a research-based, evidence-supported project. This will prepare students to critically think and apply their knowledge. And the capstone is a key component of their work-based learning experience. It's the culmination of all the work, not only in the classroom, but in this actual experience, and allows them to demonstrate the real-world skills and knowledge they have gained. So they will have a capstone coordinator in addition to the work-based learning specialist that you have met on the call today. We all work as a team. However, work-based learning specific questions will go to your work-based learning specialist, and we try to make sure that the capstone questions go directly to the capstone coordinator. Now, throughout this conversation, throughout this presentation, we've answered many questions. And I'm glad that you guys were engaged, you were participating, and we understand that this call happened late at night. You guys have, I'm sure, made a huge impact during your day and worked really, really hard. So we thank you. Some of you guys are probably doing multiple things, cooking and yelling at babies while we're doing this call. So we appreciate your attention. Since there are so many questions, we've answered the majority of those questions via the chat. It will be difficult to find specific questions unless there are questions that we did not answer that are coming through the chat right now. So I want to give 1 minute to see if there's any additional questions that's going to come through the chat so we can address it verbally. And I'll try to make sure these questions are more general versus specific to a student. Now, as they're coming through, your child will be able to schedule an appointment with their work-based learning specialist. Now, we are still currently working with the current seniors, and we're getting to the end of that. So we like to start working with your child after spring break, going into around May 1st is the best time where they can get our full attention and we transition to the rising juniors. However, they can still ask a question via Schoology, and they can still attempt to actually schedule an appointment as well. The specialists have worked really, really hard, and we're getting to a point where we can transition to the juniors. All right, so let's see. Oh, all the questions are answered.
I do see a question in here, Mr. Johnson, about the visual arts pathway, about opportunities for visual arts. I can answer that question, and then if anybody else from the team has some additional comments, we can certainly have them jump in. So for the visual arts pathway, depending on if your student is a AP art student or just a traditional visual arts pathway student, their work-based learning may look a little different. Typically, the AP art students do an art portfolio as part of their work, and we either they help to secure a mentor themselves, or we help with finding mentoring, and they receive feedback on their art portfolio, which they then have to present at a museum. So that's a little bit of information about visual arts. Other options for visual art pathway students. In the past, we've had some help out at some camps over the summer that were specific to arts, the art designs, types of pathways, whether at a college level or at a community level type art camp or gallery, things like that. So hopefully that addresses a little bit about visual arts.
Thank you so much, Ms. Slatch. And just adding to that, there are a lot of specific questions about pathways, and we understand that, and we encourage those questions to continue. What I would say is to encourage your child to first remember, this is a student-led process. So even trying to identify an experience is part of that process. We want our students to really critically think. We want them to be challenged and work to try to find an experience that they can be excited about. This is not supposed to be an experience where we have to drag them through the finish line. We want them to get in a competitive edge, something that they can add to their resume, add to their college application, something they can be proud of. So the first question that I would tell you as a parent, a guardian, a support system is to ask your child, what would they be interested in doing for their work-based learning experience? And if it's something where they're not sure, let's say they switch pathways or they have an interest in another pathway, I would ask them to think about how their new interests can align with their pathway of study. Kids are very, very intelligent, and I'm sure that they'll be able to come up with some type of alignment. The next step is for them to try to research that. And then that should lead them eventually to, when they get that appointment with their specialists, to be able to bring up their ideas and their thoughts and be able to ask those questions directly to one of the work-based learning specialists, and we'll take it from there. We have been extremely successful with placing all of our students. The only students that have not been able to place had extenuating circumstances, but our students are able to do this. We are leading in the state of Delaware when it comes to work-based learning, and our students have a competitive edge that we are proud of. And I would be remiss to not add the picture that you're looking at right now as our last year education students that received a contract to be a teacher in the district once they graduate college. So again, we want our students to have a competitive edge, and we have success stories in almost every single pathway that we have. So thank you so much again for your time and attention, and I apologize. Just wanted to also introduce you guys to our supervisor, Mr. Mike Trago, was also on the call. He was answering questions through the chat as they were going on. So we have a full team that's here to support you guys. And Mike, I just wanted, sorry to put you on the spot, but if there was anything you said, I asked you in the chat, but I wanted to give you the floor before we end the call.
Thank you all so much for being here. Record attendance this year. It's amazing. Thank you. Lots of great questions in the chat. We're still answering a couple of them, but I think once we get through these next few questions, the webinar is going to end, and then you will receive the email where you'll be able to go back and view it again. If you have any questions, you can always email WBL, so WBL Work-Based Learning at apo.k12.de.us. That will go to our entire team. So any one of us will be able to get back to you right away. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys. And again, thank you for attending. You've asked over 80 questions, so a lot of attention, a lot of engagement. With that being said, have a great night, and we look forward to supporting you and your students.